You are standing at a fence line outside Alapaha in South Georgia in the summer of 2004, looking at a photograph that will travel around the world. A hog hangs from the arm of a backhoe. It is the size of a small car. The men who killed it are calling it Hogzilla, and everyone is saying 1,000 pounds. But the truth about that animal turned out stranger than the legend, and it carried a warning the Deep South is only now learning to read. The hogs were spreading, and something about them was changing. The man who pulled the trigger was a hunting guide named Chris Griffin on a farm and fishing preserve owned by Ken Holyoke. The story ran on the wire services within weeks. Newspapers printed a 12-foot measurement and that half-ton weight, and most folks filed it away as a tall tale from the backwoods, the kind of story that grows a little every time it gets told around a deer camp. Except this one refused to shrink. A team from National Geographic came down to that farm, exhumed the carcass, and put real science to the legend. What they measured did not match the headline, but it did not make the animal any less important, because Hogzilla was not a freak of nature. Hogzilla was a preview. If you are the kind of person who wants to understand what is actually moving through the country you live on, the real thing and not the hype, then you already belong here. So before we go any further, do one thing for me down in the comments. Tell me which county you are in, and tell me whether the hogs have reached your land yet. The people watching this already know things the biologists would love to hear, and that is exactly the point. To understand the hogs standing in your bottom field tonight, you have to go back almost 500 years to a stretch of coastline in what is now Florida. In 1539, the Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto came ashore on the Gulf Coast with a herd of pigs, driven along as a walking food supply. Those were not the heavy barnyard hogs you picture now. They were lean, long-legged, and quick on their feet. As De Soto's expedition pushed north and west through the southern interior across ground that would one day be Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, the pigs did what pigs always do. They got loose. And in the thick woods and warm bottomlands of the South, they thrived without him. He was hunting for gold. What he actually planted was hogs. That was the seed. The next chapter was deliberate. In the spring of 1912, a wealthy sportsman named George Gordon Moore, a man some say helped inspire the character of Jay Gatsby, shipped 14 European wild boar by rail into the mountains of Graham County, North Carolina, to a private hunting preserve on a high ridge called Hooper Bald. Those boar were the real article, bristled and heavy-shouldered and mean, brought over to give rich men something worth chasing. They stayed penned for the better part of a decade. Then, during a dog hunt in the early 1920s, they simply tore through the fence and vanished into the Smokies, and they never came back. Nearly every wild boar bloodline in the Appalachian South traces to that one broken fence. Escaped Spanish stock from one direction, imported Eurasian boar from another, and then, for decades, a third hand kept feeding the fire. Hunters who wanted something to chase started trapping wild hogs alive and hauling them across county and state lines, turning them loose in fresh woods where none had ever been. There is even a name for it in the research, the feral swine bomb, populations appearing in brand new places overnight because a truck and a trailer put them there. It is against the law in most places now. It never fully stopped, and the cruel joke is that a pink barnyard piglet turned loose will grow bristles and tusks and go fully wild within a couple of generations. The South did not just receive these animals, the South manufactured them. Every one of those quiet releases lit a new blaze, and the Deep South was built to burn. Mild winters that never freeze them out, thick river cover to bed down in through the day, and year-round food, wild mast and planted crops both, spread out like a buffet that never closes. Give an animal that much and ask nothing in return, and it will take everything. Now here is where the story stops being history and becomes a problem no one has solved. The reason you cannot win this fight alone on your own land comes down to plain arithmetic. A sow can breed before her first birthday, some as young as 6 to 8 months, when the feed is good. She carries her litter for under 4 months, usually 5 or 6 piglets, sometimes as many as a dozen, and she can do it more than once a year. One sow becomes a sounder. A sounder becomes a county-wide problem before you have finished counting. And these are not dumb animals blundering into your traps. They are smart. They are mostly nocturnal. And once a sounder learns the shape of a trap or the sound of a truck, they teach the lesson to the young. That is why the biologists say you have to catch the whole sounder at once, because the ones that get educated are the ones you will never catch again. Researchers at Texas A&M put hard figures to it. The state's hog population climbs on the order of 18 to 20% every single year, even with everything thrown at it. To simply hold the line, wildlife specialists like Billy Higginbotham estimate you would have to remove roughly 60 to 70% of every hog in the region every year without fail. Read that again slowly, because it is the heart of the whole thing. You are not removing 60 to 70% to shrink the herd. You are removing it just to keep the number from climbing another inch. Hunters and trappers working flat out take maybe a quarter of them in a good year. You can hunt them in the daylight and hunt them at night. You can trap whole sounders in a corral and shoot them from a helicopter. It is not enough. Zoom out, and the scale is genuinely hard to hold in your head. The United States Department of Agriculture now counts more than 6 million feral hogs across at least 35 states. Texas alone carries somewhere around 2.5 million of them, close to half the national total in all but one of its counties. And the damage lands near $2.5 billion a year in ruined crops, chewed up pasture, blown out levees, and the money spent fighting back. In Louisiana, they undermine the rice levees and the flood control banks. Across Mississippi and Arkansas, they hit the row crops before the seed is even up. Down in East Texas, they turn deer leases into moonscapes, cornfields flattened overnight. Food plots you spent a whole season building erased before opening morning. Bottomland churned into a mud wallow that looks like it was shelled. If you farm or run cattle in the South, you are not reading a statistic. You are reading your own back 40. And here is the part the agencies will tell you straight, if you ask them. In a state like Texas, where better than 90% of the land is privately owned, there is no cavalry coming over the hill to save your fields for you. The wildlife departments can advise you. They can help fund a trap. They can fly a helicopter over open country now and then. But the man actually holding the line night after night and season after season is the landowner. It falls to you, the trap you build in the dark, that fence you mend for the 10th time, and the sounder you have to catch all at once before the survivors learn your pattern and hand it down to their young. That is the hard truth the specialists keep coming back to, that the landowner is the real first line of defense and not the government. And it is why the families who coordinate, who work their property lines together instead of each fighting alone, are the only ones who ever seem to get out ahead of it. One farm battling by itself does not solve anything. It just pushes the hogs onto the next place down the road and waits for them to circle back. If you have made it this far, this is the moment to subscribe, and I will tell you exactly why. The number you just heard is the good news. 6 million hogs and $2.5 billion is where we stand today, with everything we currently know how to do. The part nobody has figured out how to stop is what comes next, and it is already moving north out of the south, toward country that has never had to think about it. So let me come back to the question this whole story turns on. Are they really getting bigger? This is where I owe you honesty instead of hype, because the answer is not the one the thumbnails want to sell you. Start with the legends themselves. When that National Geographic team finished with Hogzilla, the 12-foot, 1,000-pound monster came back down to earth. The real animal measured closer to 8 feet long and weighed around 800 pounds. Still enormous, still one of the largest wild hogs ever verified with a tape and a scale, but not the beast the headline had promised. And the DNA told the more interesting story. Hogzilla was a hybrid, part wild boar and part domestic Hampshire hog, and that mix was the whole reason for his size. Then came the sequel, and it fell apart even faster. In 2007, an 11-year-old boy named Jamison Stone was photographed in Alabama beside a hog his family said weighed 1,051 pounds. The press called it the monster pig, bigger than Hogzilla, and it went around the world in a day. Within a week, the story collapsed. That animal was never a wild hog at all. It was a farm-raised domestic pig named Fred, a family pet that had been sold to a fenced hunting preserve just 4 days before the hunt. Even the famous weight did not survive a second look because the scale it was measured on only read in 10-pound steps, which makes a number like 1,051 impossible on its face. It was a good pig with a sad ending and a made-up legend stapled on top. So the record breakers are shaky at best. The pure 1,000-pound wild monster is mostly myth, or it is a barnyard hog wearing a wild costume for the cameras. That is the part the copycat channels will never tell you, because it makes for a worse thumbnail. But here is the honest other half, the half that keeps the landowners exactly right. The hogs really are changing, just not the way the tabloids claim. Every generation of feral hogs breeding back into escaped domestic stock folds in genes for size and fast growth that the lean Spanish and Eurasian animals never carried. Add year-round food, warm winters, and no wolf or big cat left to cull the largest boars, and you get animals that mature faster and put on more weight than the wiry razorbacks that first tore out of Hooper Bald. A well-fed hybrid boar pushing 3, 4, even 500 pounds is not a campfire story. He is standing on trail cameras across the South tonight, gray in the flash, right where a man swears there was nothing that big 5 years ago. So the truth sits in the middle, where the honest answers usually do. The car-sized monster is a story. The bigger, bolder, faster breeding hog is real. And the man studying his own game camera in the dark is not imagining a thing. Which brings us to why any of this should matter to you, standing on your own porch, in your own county. It is not really about the size of one trophy animal on a wall. It is about the risk that rides along with the whole spreading population. Feral hogs carry disease, and some of it crosses over to livestock, to pets, and to people who field dress one without gloves. Brucellosis, which can settle into a person for life and is misery to shake. Pseudo-rabies, which is a death sentence for a dog or a cat that catches it, and a standing threat to every domestic hog operation nearby. That alone is reason to be careful with the one you drop. Direct attacks on people are rare, and I am not going to sit here and tell you a hog is out there hunting you in the pines. The record is clear that fatal attacks are exceedingly uncommon, only a small handful ever documented in this country, but they are not zero. In November of 2019, a woman named Christine Rollins was killed by a group of feral hogs in the driveway of a rural home she cared for in Chambers County, Texas, before dawn, on her way from her car to the door. A cornered boar with tusks and 400 pounds of muscle behind them is not something any reasonable person wants to meet in the dark. And then there is the quiet damage, the kind that never makes the evening news. Ground-nesting turkey and quail whose eggs simply vanish. Fawns taken in the tall grass in spring. Native oaks and wildflowers rooted out before they can ever seed. Salamanders in stream banks and turtle nests. An entire landscape rearranged from the soil up by an animal that does not belong here and answers to nothing. Now look at the map and look north. These hogs started their American story in the Deep South, in Louisiana and Mississippi, in Alabama and Georgia, across Arkansas and East Texas, and up through Florida. But the front line is not sitting still. They are pushing into states that have never had to deal with them, testing new ground every season, carried partly by their own 4 feet and partly by the same restless hunters who keep loading them into trailers. The county that has never once seen a rooted field is simply the next one on the list. That is the warning Hogzilla was really carrying back at that fence line in Georgia all those years ago. He was never just a big animal hanging from a backhoe. He was the descendant of escaped livestock that men turned loose 4 centuries ago, grown huge on the fat of a land with no defense against him, hybrid blood and endless feed, doing exactly what they always do. Those were farm animals once, driven off a Spanish ship. Now they own the night across half the country, and the map is still growing outward, season after season, toward you. So I will leave you where we started. Tell me down in the comments which county you are in, and tell me the truth. Have they reached your land yet?